All right, what's up, everybody? Franco here with Frank Analysis. I'm back. I'm live again. Today we have another great guest. There's a new wave of independent content creators that have come about during I guess a lot of them started creating their channels during the primaries of 2019 to 2020. And I feel like this new wave of content creators are more conscious than the last wave that came about during the 2016 era. Many of them are coming up with a lot more concrete solutions, more conscious solutions. Unfortunately, the most conscious ones are the ones that are being suppressed the most. Pretty much everybody at the MCSC network has been demonetized. My channel, the Combo Couch, Nico House. And there's some people that have reached that point where they can be monetized, but YouTube has not allowed them to be monetized. They have their eye out on people who are, offering actual solutions, and they call them controversial. And we're going to get into some of the things that the Biden administration is doing right now to suppress that information. I'm proud to have one of those people here today. Howell from Howell Underground is joining me. He has a great channel. I think he has a lot of sound arguments for what we should do going forward, and his channel is also being suppressed. It's an excellent channel. So Howell, how are you doing? It's great to have you on the show.
Good. It's great to be here. And thanks for plugging Howl Underground, the never to be monetized YouTube channel.
They want you to stay underground.
Yes.
But yeah, you have a great channel. I loved watching your stuff when you would post every night. I was like, oh yes, Howell posted a video. But yeah, he does great videos where he goes over some of the literature, some of the articles that people post. Like he goes over them, he analyzes them, he gives his take. He's a big advocate for a revolution because he doesn't see electoral politics as a way forward, and neither do I. And I talk on this channel about how we need to opt out and everything. And recently, he had a video talking about he was criticizing MPP and some of the takes that Jimmy Dore gave on Jackson's channel. And it's fine to talk about, just stick with talking about the facts that some of these content creators talk about. Like, there's nothing personal about this. It's just disagreements, right? So I just want to pull up the tweet that you shared. So you put this up right before you made your video, and you said, Jimmy Dore, Jackson Hinkle, if you want a third party, call it the voting won't solve anything. We need a revolution party. Hashtag general strike, hashtag revolution now, hashtag riots. So you want to tell us a little bit more about your take there?
Yeah, I was noticing that Jimmy on that same show and I put that in the show notes of the video you're referencing. On that same show, he said that people have attacked him for telling the truth and called him divisive. He's being divisive when he calls attention to the faults of some of our favorite progressives. Like when he attacks Bernie or AOC, he gets a lot of pushback and he gets called that he's being divisive. And then he goes on and says that people who attack MPP are acting in bad faith. In other words, they're being divisive. So it's like you can't have it both
Mm-hmm.
ways. If you're going to attack people for criticizing your baby MPP, and call them bad faith actors, I think you need to look at your motives when you attack in good faith the people who deserve to be attacked. So if MPP deserves criticism and then you're protecting it, in a way you're guilty of sheepdogging because you're trying to in good faith trying to put people who deserve to be attacked situation where so if MPP deserves criticism and then you're protecting like with controlled opposition, in a way you're and instead of us getting to the truth, us getting to the bottom of things so that we can have a healthy movement, you're telling us, hey, don't be so divisive. You can't do it both ways. You have to allow the same process to happen with your own organization. And I don't know if it's fair to call MPP his organization, but he's thrown his weight completely behind it. And so I guess when MPP is attacked, he feels like he's being attacked. What the person he was referencing somebody that was a bad faith actor with regard to him. but he didn't say the name of the
Right.
person. But I think we figured it out, and so that person is going to come on my show soon, and hopefully somebody will tell us if that's actually the person that he was referring to in his show with Jason, Danny Boy. He kept saying he kept calling him Jason on the show instead of Jackson.
He kept calling him Jason.
Yeah, in the live show, and all the people in the comments kept saying, "It's Jackson. Straighten him out. Tell him what your real name is." He finally did at the end of
Oh
the show.
man. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like you have to be consistent, right? Like we're supposed to hold the Democratic Party accountable, and that he's a big advocate for that. Like we agree with him when he does that. So you got to do the same thing with your own organization, and it's not bad faith to do that. You can come from a good place and hold this party accountable. If you want it to improve, if you just ignore everything, then things are just going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. And that's what's happening with some of the people, some of these content creators who are high up there, almost at 100,000 subscribers, who MPP has on their advisory board, is that they're looking the other way when it comes to the problems that they have, which I've gone over in depth in my channel here. For people who don't know, just go to my channel, look at the videos I've had on ex MPP volunteers and petitioners on the show to talk about their story, about what happened to them, how they felt like they were mistreated. I asked, they're all from different parts of the country. They're all working class people. I have not yet seen any evidence of them being infiltrators from the Democratic Party, like how a lot of people use that as a claim against them. They call them infiltrators, even though they don't have evidence for that.
It's like
Um,
Russiagate.
yeah, exactly. And they just came out of criticizing TYT for saying that, they're calling, they're saying Aaron Mate is taking money from Syria and from
Right.
Assad, and they don't have evidence for that. There's the same thing that they're doing here. Like when Nick Brana went on Lee Camp's show, they just accept that without like even looking at any piece of legitimate evidence. And I think it's really unfortunate. Like we can't afford to waste time on a party like this.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm seeing, unfortunately. At the very least, just hold them accountable, right?
I'm for damn sure not an infiltrator. I
Hmm.
don't see how anyone's going to make that stick against me. To be fair, Jimmy said, or somebody who watches his show said that Jimmy has been talking about general strikes and protests as a solution, for a long time. And I want to acknowledge that, while at the
Yeah.
same time saying that if you're still trying to run candidates, you're distracting from your main purpose. What we really need is union kind of thinking. Unions are good at making demands. They have to know what they want, and they're good at withholding their labor and using, really tough tactics, using, I guess, being willing to play hardball. And they're also good at negotiating to find what they want. So if you've got union kind of thinking, you're not trying to run candidates. You're not
Hmm.
trying to figure out an electoral solution to a problem. I mean, after the smoke clears and after the rubble is cleaned up, then you can say, okay, this is the kind of system we need. Maybe even go into it with that, but you're not trying to elect people to a failed system. You're not trying to get as many people into a failed system as possible. You need to dismantle that system and then figure out how you're going to govern, or figure out how you're going to govern outside of the failed system and then have a revolution. That's probably even better. But if you're shepherding people, well, let's talk about traditional sheepdogging. Like, even go back to Jesse Jackson and people like that who have been known sheepdogs, or talk about Noam Chomsky, if you want to talk about a known sheepdog, who are trying to get us into the Democratic fold so that we won't start shit, so that we won't cause problems. And then you look at MPP, you can see similar motivation. If people are in an organization that primarily wants to solve things by voting, even though they talk about strikes and protests, you're tempering the convictions of the people to keep them from doing what they really need to do. So yes, we need coalitions. We need coalitions of leftists. I don't even like the word progressive anymore.
Me
We
either.
need coalitions of people, who are truly trying to get things better economically. We need populists. I like that word, populists. So we need to get these people united behind a strategy that will work and stop tempering their convictions by making them think that we should also be running candidates. We shouldn't even be thinking about running candidates right now. That's a distraction. So it's a kind of sheepdogging to do that. And so if we're talking about, well, the Green Party is about running candidates too, and MPP Nick Brana doesn't talk well of the Green Party. It it feels like they're not even serious about trying to get people together and into the streets and making demands and using the kind of pressure that the Socialist Party and the two socialist parties and the Communist Party and trade unions were using back in FDR's time. If we're going to make the kind of demand that Frederick Douglass said that we should make, we have to, power concedes nothing without a demand. We have to make a true demand. We're going to do it by using real leverage, by playing real hardball. And then when we've got pretend progressives in Congress, do lip service, giving us lip service, but then not actually wanting to use leverage like would have worked in Force the Vote and so on, then we're not serious about it. It's if you're not knowingly sheepdogging people, then you have your head up your ass and you're unknowingly doing it. But either way, we've got to be able to point that out without people getting their fifis hurt.
Yeah.
Have an honest, good faith discussion about what's actually going to work. And if it's not going to actually work, we have to say, no, this is bullshit. It's not actually going to work. We have to stop doing this. We have to actually get to something that'll work. And you brought me on here because you think of me as a practical thinker. And being practical, if the whole point of the CIA all the way through has been to squelch leftists,
Yeah.
and which it has, to stop communism, to stop the kind of revolution that happened in Russia, like a mere 10 years before FDR, was negotiating with the capitalist class, trying to get that to work. With all that in mind, we have to figure out that we need to do something similar to what was done then. We need to put real pressure on the people that are making decisions. We don't even need new politicians. We need people that you can push anybody. You can push Nancy Pelosi to do the right thing.
Yeah, or the Republicans. Yeah, any of them. It doesn't matter who's in office.
Yeah, you could push the Republicans. Some of them are more populists than Nancy is, easily. There are quite a few Republicans I feel like we could push more easily in a better direction than some of the diehard blue dogs. But even the so-called progressives are just rolling over and taking it. If we want to get the job done, maybe the best chance we'd have is pushing the progressives. But I think we can push anybody. We don't even need new elected officials. We just need to figure out how to push them harder.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And what? Let's also talk about how the system is set up to make it impossible for third parties to succeed, and making it impossible for a progressive or quote unquote progressive to become a president or to even make it far. There's like some behind the scenes negotiations that I feel happen with some of these people that run as progressives, and then we see them like lay with their belly up when they're in Congress, and they don't actually do anything. They're just tweeting all day. Which now they're called like hashtag tweet squad, because that's all they do. They don't actually write any legislation. They just virtue signal on Twitter. But
more harm than good, because they distract us from, they make us think that what they're doing is actually going to solve something.
Exactly. And then we have people that are running like that are PRs for them, like like people like Sam Cedar and Vosh and all these people. They're like, oh no, we got to protect them. It's about personality. So I feel like some of these channels that promote third parties are still making it about personality, but they've transferred it over to these groups, like these third parties that they don't have a concrete plan for how to overcome these major obstacles that they have to overcome in order to become legitimate. And with
Money is
HR1 and everything, yeah, it's impossible for them.
money is the biggest issue. So if you can buy out the progressives and have them calling Nancy Pelosi Mama Bear, if you can corrupt people that go in there with good intentions. I think AOC did go in with good intentions, but then she got sucked into the power vortex, and that's money and popularity. I think she's kind of subject to that. But if that can happen to her, it could happen to, well, Justice Democrats. How has that turned out?
Yeah.
And then also anyone the MPP puts forward, as long as it's legal to buy politicians, then who cares what party you're from? You're still going to get
Yeah.
bought if you have any kind of influence. So it's all just a losing prospect until the laws are changed and it's not possible to buy politicians and we have something more like a direct democracy.
Yeah. And we don't have time. Like, how long is it going to be until we get like third party candidates, like enough of them on there to actually implement enough pressure? Meanwhile, like, look at what's happening with our environment. Look at what's happening with like these tensions with countries like China and Russia, like
Yeah.
for a nuclear catastrophe. Like, we don't have time for that. Like, we need to take action now, direct action on the ground. We need to opt out of the system, and we got to stop relying on other people to solve our problems for us.
Right.
And the criticism that I hear from some people who defend third parties, like, oh, why don't you create your own third party? Like, some people don't have time for that. Or some people tried with MPP and then they were mistreated, and
Yeah.
that they told their stories.
It's safe to say it would never work. It's safe to say it's like incrementalism. And you might even cynically, if you're as cynical as I am, say it's designed not to work. That's what sheepdogging is supposed to do. It's supposed to keep us from getting to anything that will actually work. When incrementalists say, okay, we need to keep in the game, we need to keep our committee assignments, we need to keep our contacts, with powerful people, and then slowly but surely we're going to proceed, we're going to make progress towards the goals. Joe Biden, the new FDR, he's going to get there. He's going to get there eventually because, our intentions are so good. But how many hundreds of years need to go before we figure out that that's bullshit? That's never, not even intended to be the case. So the people who tell us, you just have to be patient. You just have to let us keep our committee assignments and work together with the assholes that are actual in front of your face assholes instead of the behind your back assholes that are never going to do anything anyway. Eventually you have to realize not only would it not happen in time, but I think you don't even have to be cynical to say, no, it's intended never to happen. That's the whole point. It's not supposed to ever happen. So
Yeah.
unless we take matters into our own hands, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we don't have much time left.
Yeah, we gotta stop hero worshiping and realize that the true hero is like within us. Like, we are the ones that have to save ourselves. No one's gonna come out and like save us. Like, it has to be you to take action. I had Jimmy on the show. I told him like my thoughts on MPP, and he said, he said that if he criticizes MPP, that he feels like he'd be punching down. But that's not the case. Like,
No.
they're putting themselves there as this, new party, right? They're supposed to be something big. They're supposed to be bigger than him. Jimmy's just a content creator. This is supposed to be a national party. And he'd be criticizing them, from the perspective of the people who were trying to help MPP. So he'd be punching up. He'd be helping these people that volunteered, and to hear their story. And again, like, the evidence of them being like infiltrators, I have yet to see it. Just hear their stories, and if they truly are infiltrators, and then they'll get exposed eventually. But I had yet to see that.